Chair of the Water Management Committee, and I'm calling the meeting of the Water Management Committee to order. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 18 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov, G-O-V. All right, the first item on our agenda, as soon as I can get my computer up to speed here, is a review of the minutes. Suzanne will not be joining us today, but rather than have them lay over, I thought it was best to look at them now. And unfortunately, every time I close my computer, it decides to migrate what's on it to different positions. It'll take me a minute to find it here. Okay.
I just want to make sure you have that.
Yeah. Thank you. Suzanne sent me slightly revised minutes. I believe, I'm not absolutely certain because I haven't had a chance to read them all, but I believe they are the same as the ones sent earlier, except for the fact that at the end, she's added on the two documents that were displayed on the screen, Tech Memo number 3 and Tech Memo number 4, that she did not have in the original draft.
2 and 3, or 3 and 4?
3 and 4. Okay. I also made, do you want to read it paragraph by paragraph? You just want to see what changes I'm suggesting, or?
I could go just with your changes.
Anybody else? Okay.
I've got one typo if we care.
Yeah, well, that's what, is it before Harris respectfully interrupted?
In the next, it's in the first bullet under that.
Okay.
What action can be taken by the town?
See,
Oh, about,
it's got the word down
Down.
instead of town. The,
but wouldn't it also be more sensible to say inquired about what action can be taken by the town?
She was just talking about a typo.
Yeah, just a simple typo.
Well, I think we can
Right.
change that, too. Who knows what typos are? I know when I was doing these, sometimes the typo was the result that my hands were moving faster than my head, so that constituted a typo.
You have that problem too.
Okay. You'll see I also changed the verb up above. She started with everything being in the past tense, and then we suddenly jumped to the present tense. I thought for consistency, we probably should keep the same tense all the way through, which may be what all the rest of my changes are. Okay. I didn't catch this one. All right, well, if we agree that this should all be past tense, I'll do the rest of them. I mean, we don't have to sit
okay.
and do them now. Under that area, I just inserted the Cape Cod Commission's 2017 implementation report, since, and that it's what's being implemented by the town. The reports are on the website. And then the first bullet, which referred to waterways, it's actually the watersheds, but I thought it was more explanatory to refer to Nauset Estuary, which is actually, that's one of the 11 priority watersheds for remedial action, right? That's just how well I was typing this morning. It's remedial. Okay. The others are just, the rest are just all changing the tenses, I think. Yeah.
You don't need to have me list the specific typos, is that correct? But the
No,
major
these-
changes would be what, Adele?
I don't think there are any major changes. I mean, it's just more clearly identifying what the, well, you can see them, actually, if you want to write them down. They're up there. Change in the first bullet.
But you're showing the first version with your changes, is that right? What we
I'm-
got today
I'm-
is the,
I'm showing, she revised it, so I'm showing her revised version, which added on the technical memos 3 and 4 with my changes.
still with some changes, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Gotcha.
And then the only other one is up above. I don't really consider those terribly substantive, but I would think more if we added some item that wasn't in there before, but,
Do you want me to file these now with the clerk? once
no,
they-
no, she'll file them.
She will?
I'll send them back to her. No, she's just missing today. She's here,
Okay.
but she just couldn't make today's meeting.
And she will see these changes?
I will send these to her, yes. Okay? I have a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
Vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, okay. Okay, my second item was a report from the health agent. The health agent is not here, so we'll move on and then go back when she comes. Okay. Policy on, well, two things, actually. I'm sorry, Charles, I noticed, going through my notes, unfortunately, when it was too late to amend the agenda, that you had offered at the prior meeting to compile some action items from technical memo number 3. I didn't include that as an item on the agenda. I don't know if you have anything to report on that.
I don't have anything to report for this
Okay.
meeting.
Okay. And just close this. This is just another item of information which I found. Okay, I don't know whether this card went to everyone in town or only went to the people who were on the water system, so I thought it might be worthwhile displaying it. Tells you about the water, reports of water quality on the town, on municipal water, where you could find it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm not seeing that.
can you read that? These things don't, for some reason or another, I don't know whether it's my computer or the screen, they don't show up that well. It's www.eastham-ma.gov/ all caps CCR. And that's a report of the water quality of the town's municipal water system. So obviously, that's something of interest both to people who are currently on the water system and the rest of the town. So it's the Consumer Confidence Report on water quality. So that's where you can find it. Okay. Student participation in committees. The Board of Selectmen has for, I don't know now, maybe it's a couple of months, been considering an expansion of committee membership, an expansion of eligibility for committee membership. Though it's not written down anyplace, apparently it's understood that you have to be 18 to be a member of a town committee or board. What the board has been considering is expanding participation in some form to 14 through 17-year-olds. And for groups like ours, which is an advisory board, a resident between the ages of 14 and 17 The policy has not yet taken effect, but it seems pretty clear that it will soon be adopted.
Pardon me, but who is promulgating this policy? Is that,
The Board of Selectmen. Residents between the ages of 14 and 17 could apply to be a member of an advisory board like ours. Then they'd go through the normal search committee process, and if appointed, they have all the normal rights and responsibilities as any other members of the committee. That is also true of what's called non-advisory, non-regulatory boards. Those are the boards that cover specific land use purposes, that sort of thing, and the Affordable Housing Trust, those types. A difference is made with respect to the regulatory boards, where individuals between the ages of 14 and 17 could serve as ad hoc members of the board, which means they may participate in the process and business of the boards with certain limitations, including they can't be involved in a deliberation or vote. In addition, any committee or board, even if it has no vacancies, could accept ad hoc members, so in this category.
and is this under consideration, or has it been passed?
It has not been passed, but it has been discussed several times, and I would say it is very likely it will be passed. I expect it may come up for a final vote at the next Board of Selectmen Monday meeting.
Do you envision these young people could be involved in, say, testing functions? I mean, actually having something to do? Or more than just observers?
No, they would be as qualified as you are as a member of the board.
Well, I thought they were not allowed to vote, is that?
No, that's in a regulatory board. But for an advisory board like this, they would be full members of the board and would have all the same rights and responsibilities
Okay.
as any other member of the committee. Okay?
How will this be publicized to the town? Do you know?
Well, I suspect that
High school.
it'll go up on the new website as under one of the hot news items. It's a change. And a little bit out of order, I was thinking of it more when we talked about the website. But as you may or may not know, the town now has a Facebook page. And that could be an appropriate place to make mention of a change in policy, and could be quite appropriate considering that that's a more likely place for individuals of this age to go than the town website.
I think so, but it would be wonderful for it to be publicized, it seems to me, to like the science and math teachers, perhaps.
I believe there has been discussions with the relevant faculty at Norset Regional High School,
Good.
which doesn't preclude
Which
people in
doesn't-
this age group who are not at Norset Regional High School, but it's one way to get the word out
to
about it.
encourage students who.
Yeah, well, I
show
think
that-
there is some interest. I believe that the Finance Committee, for one, does have a student currently.
Good.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions related, but they're not on the agenda about membership. Is that appropriate to bring it up?
I guess. I can't tell until you ask me the
All right.
question.
One was that some months back, Nancy Munger was considered for membership on the committee. She delayed. She talked to Charles about that. I wonder if there's anyone that's reached out to her as to see if she's interested in serving.
I think she told Charles she would be in touch. I'd be glad to contact her, but I think that's where it was left. That she said she would be in touch if she was interested, so.
I think maybe
Well,
our being proactive would be better.
No, that's fine. If I get her email, I'll send her an email.
The second thing, Adele, was that we talked briefly about meeting time that might fit people's schedules more appropriately if it were late afternoon, early evening. I mean, is that something we want to talk about again?
It'd probably be better when the full committee is here, but I think that is. I could be wrong. I think that is a disincentive, because aside from people who can who are still working but are, like Scott, in somewhat of a consultant role, can sort of manage their work time. People who work on a, a normal office schedule or something like that can't participate unless they happen to work in the type of environment where their employers will give them time off for this type of activity. So it does limit, who can participate. We could put that on the agenda for, well, it won't be January, assuming we have these other meetings. And I am not going to be here in February, so maybe we put it on the agenda for March. Let people know in advance, and
Adele, do we have a regular meeting in January? We have those two special ones.
no, if in fact these two special meetings occur, and if I get a quorum for them, those will be our January meetings. Okay? So, very timely, Jane.
Sorry, I was next
That's
door.
all right. So, Jane is, well, we're actually on some things that we actually skipped down to 3 and a couple of things that I had mentioned.
Thanks.
Like the report of water quality, that's card, because I wasn't certain whether this went to the whole town or just to the people on the water system. So I thought it was good for people to know where this is available online.
Was this sent to you?
Yeah, but we are on the water system, so that's
Oh,
why I
sent to your
couldn't tell
house.
whether it was
Okay, this
everybody.
is sort of old news, because this is an identification of what used to be considered by state definition as non-community public water supply wells. So when you serve more than 25 people a day or have more than 15 connections under state regulation, you are regulated by the state for water quality standards. It's not considered a private well any longer, but it's not owned by a municipality. So they're called non-community public water supply wells. So both of these, we actually had several water quality reports that were required by DEP. So Town Hall was one, Eastham Library, et cetera. We had police station, COA, several of our municipal buildings where the population exceeded that threshold were required to have these reports. So now we have a municipal system available here at Town Hall, police station, the library, et cetera. So some of these are eliminated. We've actually what's called declassified, so we're no longer classified. The only public facility we have remaining at this point is Wiley Park.
Well,
I think that's what that refers to.
This is odd, though, because this is sent out by Pennachuck, and they're the people who are managing the billing for the municipal water system.
Oh, okay.
I must admit,
Okay.
I haven't
I-
yet,
I-
I
where
haven't
did this
yet gone
come
to
from?
read the report, but that's where it came from.
Oh, okay.
Pennachuck are the
Well, then
billers.
what they're referring to then are the reports for the municipal water
Yeah,
system
that's- yeah.
will be publicly available.
Yeah, yeah.
So that might be, okay. I'm
Okay.
reading this as a water quality report for these two sites.
Yeah,
But
no.
in fact,
No, it's just telling you hard copies are
okay.
available.
yeah.
And did you
Admittedly,
receive
it
this,
doesn't
Adele, at your mailing address? Is that
Yeah.
how you got this?
Yes, but that's why I'm screening it to spread information, because I'm on the water system, so I didn't know whether they sent it to everybody in town, or they only sent it to
Are you
people on the water
Yeah.
system.
Oh, I'm
Well, that's funny, I don't know why
know.
they'd pick me out.
Sorry, I
No,
didn't
it
really
could-
read.
Well, I was gonna say that's how I pay my bills, but we all pay our bills to Pennachuck, so I don't understand why. Maybe that's it. See, I've been on the system, it will be a year on December 20th.
Well, there are responsibilities of notification with municipal or systems that are operated that exceed a certain population. So they have to send out reports. So this might be in lieu of that. That might be, I don't know, I'm guessing. I
Yeah,
haven't read
yeah.
the whole document, I
Yeah.
can't tell you.
It's on my list. of many things to read. So anyway, so why don't we move on to Jane's report?
Okay, I'm just going to I try to be succinctful and report on sort of the general categories of the environmental section of my job here. And the first one being wastewater. First of all, I did send out to you and other interested parties that I had email addresses for, or at least I guessed from, some of them might be obsolete at this time. I know Adele pointed out a couple, but to save the dates. We have two reports that will be coming up for discussion. The first one is wastewater. So as you will recall, I received a grant for close to $50,000 looking at characterization of the Salt Pond watershed for a possible permeable reactive barrier as a non-traditional approach there. And so we are completing the hydrogeology, and it will lead us to the next steps in the recommendation on what additional environmental assessment needs to take place, and to try to build support for the next phase, which would be an implementation plan ultimately. So that wastewater, that grant will be, we're going to try to point out the highlights of that grant, and also at the January 3rd meeting, which is going to be posted jointly for Board of Selectmen, Water Management, and Board of Health, try to move towards the next steps in our targeted wastewater planning efforts. So that's number one. The report that is in development has been sent to the Cape Cod National Seashore for comments. So it's still a draft report. I am still working, fine-tuning the information, getting updates from the consultants. So it's still in draft form, so I haven't made it available to, the different boards and so forth. But as soon as it is a final document, I will do so. And we'll also be doing a presentation to the Cape Cod Water Protection Collaborative, because that was my funding source. So that is all going on. We have had a continued relationship, a very positive relationship, working with the Cape Cod National Seashore in some of the other aspects of our targeted wastewater planning effort. We were looking at improvements to the Salt Pond Visitor Center wastewater treatment system. They are pursuing a contract to do so, and then we are going to be discussing, in terms of presentation to the Board of Selectmen, additional multi-level monitoring wells that would augment the hydrogeology and things that we need to know specifically before we do any type of demonstration or pilot implementation approach there. So that has been a lot of work that's sort of coming to completion, and I think that we'll be in a good position to move forward. In terms of ponds, we have received the report from Solitude, which I made available to you at the last meeting. I sent it out to Liz, who was our limnologist, Liz Moran. Company's name is Ecologic, for review and recommendations and a presentation to the town on her analysis of that report. So that her comments were in draft form. She just gave me some off-the-cuff first cut remarks. She is going to do a literature search and research projects, current projects, for status and different implementation methods that have been used in similar situations. And again, a public presentation will be made January 17th and sort of posted in the same way as a joint meeting. I think that streamlines, the meeting schedule and the cost to the town. So that will be on January 17th. And on the stormwater front, I think several of you attended the recent conference on coastal resiliency, and there are a lot of discussions and that covered stormwater management, and that is clearly part of our objective moving forward with trying to improve some of our impaired water bodies, both saltwater and freshwater. And so the Cape communities that are subject to the EPA requirement to file what's called the MS4 permits, because we fall under a certain population density and distance from population centers and so forth. Eastham is just marginally into this system, so we are required to file these stormwater reports, and I've been doing so with Neil Andres and pulling in other resources, but the two of us basically have been doing this over the past 10 years. And the Cape communities, I could say almost without question, our stormwater initiatives are really underfunded. We have pretty much no funding assigned to this. And so we try to streamline and economize where we can. So the idea from several of the DPW directors and natural resource officers that are, have been highly engaged in this, came up with an idea of a collaborative. We have collaboratives for other reasons. I'm in a health agents collaborative, the Cape Cod Water Protection Collaborative deals with those types of issues. So I thought it was an excellent idea. So Neil and I are participating in that group that's just trying to develop and formulate how we group together, whether it's through an memorandum of understanding or some other means. But anyway, the concept behind it are to sort of share technical and educational information to eliminate duplication, because I think our towns individually, we spend the same money for the same information over and over again. So if we can pool regionally together, it will strengthen our opportunities and reduce the cost across the towns. And we definitely here in Eastham will benefit because we don't have the staffing nearer to what other towns have. And so it's a really good partnership. It definitely will benefit us, and it will maximize our opportunities for grants and equipment and all kinds of positive reasons. So that is pretty exciting. We've already received a grant, even though we're not a formal group yet. And I think that will help in this work. And at the conference, which I thought was excellent, Wacoit Bay Estuarian Reserve does an excellent job of pulling together conferences and really getting a lot of positive energy in a room. And I think I always walk away with thinking it was a really worthwhile use of my time. So in that effort, I had an opportunity to really talk with APCC. We had been working with them for the past few months. I've been doing site visits of some of the green infrastructure projects that they have been involved in that have been funded through EPA grant money that we're not actually eligible for. But one of the deliverables in the funding was to share this information with other communities. So I think I have learned a lot from both things that have gone right and things that have gone wrong. And so we have asked them to come to Eastham to look, and I just was actually in a meeting with Conservation and our DPW and planning, looking at how APCC might be able to assist us in some of the projects that we are involved in right now, starting off with our library. And I know, Mary Lou, you sent me some really nice examples of exhibit signs. So we have some stormwater green infrastructure right here in our midst at the library. And I think the one thing lacking is the outreach and education around it. So that was very helpful. And I actually, I had an opportunity to talk with Lauren McKean at the Cape Cod National Seashore, She told me who the vendor was for that, one of those signs, very nice. So we're trying to put together, we're trying to always save money, so we're trying to figure out, might we be able to use APCC's templates, some of the graphics that they already have, and put out some signage that the Board of Trustees might like. So we're gonna do some site visits together, sort of evaluate that site for outreach and education. And so I think that's easily done. And I think I have some money that was actually donated to the town for this type of effort. So I think that would support this, that project. So we're gonna go there, and we just made a list of priorities that we're going to focus on in their site visit, which range from getting their assistance with grants that we've applied for but have not been funded for. Might they know of some other opportunities that we might be able to resubmit those grants, and something less complicated, looking at problem areas such as Herring Pond parking lot. We have invested a great deal of money in restoration with alum treatment and made great improvements in that water quality. And now we have stormwater impacts. So how could we use green infrastructure and some in-house work effort to regrade the parking lot so it's not draining into the ponds, so that it's draining into a bioswale, something of that nature. But everything requires a permit, everything requires surveying and engineered plans and so forth. So there's always a cost, no matter how you look at it. So we're just trying to, we're gonna have them help us evaluate that project. We're gonna be looking at another project on South Sunken Meadow where the stormwater is causing flooding to a particular household area and so forth. And then we have a fourth project on Great Pond. So we'll see where that goes. That's kind of what is going on. So it's supposed to be slow in the winter, and it doesn't seem like it's very slow.
What's the project on Great Pond?
Great Pond, there is, the way the water, the stormwater runs down the hill.
This is on the Great Pond side
On
or
the
the Wally
Great Pond,
Park?
on the Great Pond side.
Okay.
It floods the road, and we actually have applied in the past for a coastal zone management grant, and that was not funded because it impacts, there's a herring run there, and that project is pretty costly, and it probably couldn't be done in 1 year anyway. It's sort of a two-year phase project, but it's one that we'd like to, just have them look at and see if they have any ideas for us on where we might be able to resubmit that, because we think there might be a lot of opportunities for funding for that project. So, I think I tried to touch base on all my little problems, so.
Are you talking about the water coming down Herring Brook into Bridge Pond, the herring run there, and then getting into the
No, it's,
west?
the Herring Pond project you talking
No,
about?
you said Great Pond, but I'm wondering where.
Great Pond, yeah, that's on Great Pond Road, that's that.
Okay, over the
Okay,
east
that's
side.
that one. And then, so, yeah, so we're just trying to prioritize,
You
and
said Sunken Meadow, or,
South Sunken Meadow, there's a drainage problem.
okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so let's move on to the website discussion.
Do you want to do that, or do you want to do the salt pond thing, since we have this?
Okay, but I do, well, just make certain we keep it, well, we got plenty of time, I guess, because I do want to make certain today we get to the website. Okay.
I would like that also.
Okay, I got to flip through here to my notes. Okay. I also got to change what I have up here. Okay, this is the report that we received from Solitude Lake Management, who are the people who did the survey of Minister Schoolhouse Pond in June of 2017. This is their report, their findings based on that survey. One thing I guess I'm not sure of, because I didn't go looking, is this available on the town website now?
No, not yet.
Okay, so it
We
will be.
haven't had our
yeah.
public meeting,
Yeah,
so I'm not
okay.
going to make that available
Okay.
until we have
So
that
it will
meeting.
be, it's just Jane reported earlier, and you saw the meeting notice. This is going to be discussed on January 17th at that joint meeting. And, if you come to the meeting, there'll be more information about it. And also then, the report itself will go up on the town website after that.
And that should be included in the list of documents handed out at the meeting, right, that report? This report?
Are you talking about today? Yeah, because it doesn't say just handed out, it says used or displayed.
Yeah. I
And-
have a copy of this, so.
Well, Jane sent it all to us electronically, so we all have digital
I have a hard
copies.
copy. So.
Right.
Okay. I did. I now have a digital copy. Okay. I'm just going to hit basically a few highlights from it that then Liz Moran mentioned in her initial, as Jane said, it's only a draft response, it's not complete, she's doing further work, but in her initial response to Jane's request for review of of Solitude's recommendations and report, the one thing that Solitude did find, which I guess is not uncommon, something called common reed or phragmites on the, not in the pond, but on the banks of Minister. Yeah, Minister. I always have to, in my head, see them to know which is which. The banks of Minister Pond, and they are suggesting eradication because they are an invasive weed, and it's not just simply that they will grow and grow, as these things do in my backyard, but that they will also then choke out the good vegetation that we want in the area and around the pond. So we can get back to that later in terms of Liz's response. They did find, because it was June, that the density of vegetation was low because obviously it was only starting to grow. They recognized that. And they also found elevated concentrations of phosphorus and chlorophyll A, suggesting low dissolved oxygen, which of course is bad. So with all of this, they also made a list, actually, which is interesting, of all of the vegetation that is growing, that they detected growing in the pond. I'm treating it as one pond with two basins because that seems the easiest way to deal with it, and it's the way they dealt with it. They found no invasive species in the pond itself, so that is good anyway. Basically, their conclusions were pretty much that we should do another full season sampling, which would be the summer of 2018, have four sessions of sampling to fully determine the source of the nutrients, how high they were, how they might be managed, that we treat the phragmites, and that we consider, which was sort of news to us based on earlier studies, which I'll get to in a minute, that we consider the use of possibly an aluminum sulfide or alum treatment in the pond. These are all preliminary because, as they said in their report, that basically the sampling that they are recommending for the summer of 2018 would be necessary to determine what, in fact, is the cause of the problems at the pond and how best to treat them. It's also very interesting, though, for those of you who followed Great Pond and Herring and remember what it cost us to treat those ponds. These figures, at least the alum treatment, are very different. There's coming in with something around 5,000 to 7,500. That reflects the fact that these two ponds together are 22.3 acres with a maximum depth about 13 feet, whereas Great Pond was 109.7 acres and a maximum depth of 43 feet. Herring, 44 acres, maximum 39 feet. So obviously, we were dealing with much greater areas in both herring and great, and therefore, in terms of the treatment, was far more extensive in terms of what they had to do, and therefore the much higher cost. Okay. Liz Moran's, okay, I mentioned, let me get out of this one. People want to see my family every time I have to go back and forth. The ecologic report is an interesting document. It's the attachment, which is the fourth page, I believe. Okay, yeah, this was, it's not actually what I was looking for, but I have it up. This is what Liz's response to some suggestions made by the Schoolhouse Minister of Butters in August 2015 about possible treatment methodologies to deal with the conditions in the pond, including alum. And at that point, it did not seem that alum would be a suitable treatment, and that was based in part on, I can find this thing, alum effectiveness and longevity in shallow ponds. Okay. This was actually a document that was given to us by the, initially, and then Liz also had it, by the abutters to Schoolhouse Minister, that talks about the use of alum in shallow lakes. And as you see in that first paragraph, they say that alum may be completely ineffective or effectiveness may be short-lived if much of the lake is covered with macrophytes that senesce, deteriorate during summer, and contribute phosphorus to the water. At the time, it was our understanding, based on the concerns that the Friends of Minister Schoolhouse had, that was much of their concern, the coverage of the pond with macrophytes. And so it seemed that the alum would not respond to their problems. As Jane mentioned in her presentation, Liz Moran is doing further work on this in preparation for the January 17th meeting, and that will include further research into the possible use of alum, as well as various other methodologies that could be used possibly in Minister Schoolhouse. She seconded or totally agreed with the recommendation that there needs to be continued investigation of the nutrient sources, meaning the sources of phosphorus and nitrogen in the pond, and the cycling of those sources and what they are producing. She thinks it's worthwhile to consider eradication of the phragmites, and she thinks that as these studies go on, we also want to talk more with the abutters to find out, is their principal concern macrophytes or algae? And of course, all of that will be ongoing. There'll be a more extensive discussion of both the Solitude report, and Liz by then will have a fuller report of her analysis and response to the Solitude report at the January 17th meeting. One thing to keep in mind as we move forward is, as this goes, any conclusions that we should reach as a committee, or even the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health would reach as boards or committees, we'll then have to, if it's a conclusion to move forward with any sorts of treatments or even treatment of the phragmites, that would need approval by the Conservation Commission. Yes.
Adele, the ecologic report is only considering the effectiveness of alum. Is that what the?
No. She is looking into the effectiveness of alum, again, as she did before, but she's also considered other other methodologies. She's looking at other things that could be used as possible. I got the right one here, yes, as possible methodology in the town. If you looked at it, the first couple of pages, yeah. She runs through the various things that we were concerned about before, possible use of wind-powered air compressors,
Oh, yes. Okay.
and things of that nature, aeration methodologies. I suspect that she will be looking again at solar bees, whether or not they've proved themselves out to be useful now. At the time that we first considered this, which would be back early 2012, there was a lot of concern about are solar bees a really useful technique, and that sort of thing. And obviously, there's been some more work with that. In fact, I don't want to jump ahead of the website, but it is interesting that one of the presentations at this Cape Coastal Conference was by a fellow from Mashpee that has been using solar bees in Santuit Pond, which is a shallow pond, and they have had good results. Doesn't necessarily mean it would work for us, because everything is related to what are your particular conditions, how is it, what are your problems. But at least it is more information than was available on solar bees 5 years ago now. That's all, something I'm certain that you will be looking at, all of those things, any possibilities. But then eventually, what seems the most useful way to go will depend on this second round of water sampling and complete water sampling to give us a clearer focus on just exactly what's happening and why. So, I noticed there are butters here from Schoolhouse Minister. Does anyone want to say anything, or?
Yes, so thank you. So,
If you want to come to the microphone and identify yourself, please.
my name is Claude Grazier, and I have a cottage by Minister Pond. So thank you for showing the report. And
Excuse me, I actually sent you a hard copy, because I didn't have your email address, but you had requested it, so it's in the mail.
oh, okay,
If,
thank
if,
you. Yeah.
and if you
And-
want to give me your email addresses, anyone that would like, we send out notices about upcoming events and so forth. Oh, okay, great, okay,
So I know you send. We have the electronic version.
okay.
And well, my reaction is, it gets very technical, and of course I don't really understand all of it. But my reaction is, one, that you guys have studied all of this for quite a while, already 5 years. And two, my sense is we know, is that right, why there is little oxygen. Is that right? It's because there is all this kind of polluted water waste that runs into the lake and
No.
kills. Isn't
The
it?
pond does not receive water from other sources other than the groundwater. Is that what you mean by polluted water?
Well, what I mean is
It's not a
the
stream-fed pond or anything like that.
right. What I mean, I'm not a scientist, but usually what creates difficulties for ponds or the life that we don't see, there is the the modern negative of society, like chemicals and so on. And,
Yeah.
and
Let me try to just, not that I'm an expert, and that's why we hired Ecologic and
you know more than I
Solitude.
do.
Well, it's some ponds, the source of the problem is from wastewater streaming from up gradient and flowing through the pond. It is, a pond is just exposed groundwater. So there's contribution from up gradient. However, a lot of ponds where the nutrient source comes from is from recycling in the water column. So if you have, it's a cycle. And so if you have a lot of plant life, eventually the plants die, decompose, decay, and the sediments can collect a lot of this nutrient load, the phosphorus, which is not flushed out through the system. So when the oxygen gets low because of the plant growth and the blocking of the sun and the whole cycle of life, the low dissolved oxygen can cause the release from the sediments of that nutrient, and it gets recycled in the water column. So sometimes it's internal. The recycling is the sediments are so enriched that that's really the main source of the problem. And we live in an environment where in our very fragile ponds, we have Conservation Commission rules and regulations for the right reasons, that they don't want to dredge. We have a lot of, life that you would not want to dredge those sediments where, so it's not always one reason on Cape Cod why ponds get impacted.
Right.
Sometimes it's a past agricultural activity. It could have been agricultural. And we have those situations where you've had duck farming, you've had, cow grazing, and it doesn't seem like, obviously, those activities aren't ongoing today, but it's the sins of the past that cause that extreme nutrient loading that then recycle in the water column when the conditions are right. So my guess is the sediments, and that will be part of the further analysis, and that's why we backstepped on this particular pond. The deeper ponds are actually easier to deal with from a tried and true methodology. The shallower ponds where the problem in this particular case seems to be plants, it's not algal, so we're faced with a whole set of difficult problems to solve. Mashpee, the solar bees, and we actually had a permit through conservation several years ago that was in place for the use, we were going to try solar bees there. Then knowledge came about that it's not an effective technology with plants. It's fine with algae, but it's not, it doesn't work with macrophytes. So as we continue to walk through all of these conflicting issues, we're hoping to get the right, choose the right path.
Right.
So it's, even though we have studied it, every step we take leads us to say, geez, we have to know more. And there's no sense in pursuing, at whatever expense it might be, the wrong path. So that's why I know it's frustrating, but the problem didn't happen overnight, and the problem really takes really detailed evaluation to get to the right choice. So we are trying, and I think we have some good partners in this area, but that's.
Yeah. As Jane was saying about sediment, in fact, one of the things that I noted, little facts that stick in my head for some reason, that was the major problem in Santuit Pond in Mashpee. It was sediment. He said 78% of their problem was sediment. It wasn't inflow. We do have one inflow problem, fairly significant inflow problem into Schoolhouse Minister, and that is one that we can't control. There is runoff from Route 6. The state and Route 6 and that runoff, the drains for the runoff, are controlled by the State Highway Department. And the town has tried, has sought relief from the State Highway Department. And so far, apparently, they don't consider this to be a priority project. So they have not offered any remediation. And that's sort of where we're stuck with that. So it puts us on the unfortunate position. I don't think that would affect whether we would go ahead, but we will go ahead if we find a way to remediate the pond, and we will go ahead to try to deal with it recognizing at the same time that the state highway is continuing to pour stuff in there that is going to create a problem. But until Mass State Highway decides to fix it, there's nothing we can do about it.
Adele, can I make
Yeah,
a
sure.
comment? I went to a conference, I guess it was a year ago last summer, and there was a speaker there who has a private company who has a contract with Massachusetts DOT. And she said that contract involved looking at all the places on Route 6 where runoff runs off the highway and goes into a priority area for water, either a freshwater pond while people are swimming or a town well field or something like that. And she was saying that a possible fix for situations like that was what they call the rain garden, to allow the runoff water to go into a basin that has plants in it that kind of allows for some treatment exposed to air and water as opposed to not being exposed to the atmosphere. Her contract ran just from the Cape Cod Canal to the Rotary down here. And that was, it's a good step forward because we've got a professional looking into it, and it could be something that leads to, something better for Minister Schoolhouse Pond with respect to that drain that comes down from Route 6. So, there.
Yeah, that's good to hear, Yeah, I suspect, it's fairly complex. I was wondering if the depth of the pond has changed. 13 feet is so small. You just realize how small the depth of the pond has changed.
Not according to Solitude's report. They found, they had it in meters. Luckily,
Oh,
Liz Moran referred to it in feet, which was a help to me. She said about 13 feet.
Oh, 13 feet. Oh, yeah, 13 feet,
Commenting
yeah.
on their report. So that's they expressed it as meters, 4.3 in Minister and 4.54 in Schoolhouse. And in her review of this, she referred to it as at about 13 feet.
yeah, it's a very shallow pond.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is why the treatment is so complicated, because it is shallow.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say complicated, but so difficult to ascertain the best way to go about it because of its shallowness.
I'm sorry. What do you know? Don't ask me.
If you'd like to say something, please. Well, there's more than one microphone there, so just identify yourself.
I'm Linda Green. I'm also, we are married and share the cottage, one of the cottages, and it is on Schoolhouse
Green,
Pond.
excuse me, green with an E
Green
at
like
the
the
end?
color.
or-
No,
or
no E.
Just green, okay.
And I do want to thank Jane Crowley again for, on Monday morning, she got back to me about the fact that there was a meeting and some background on it, so. I guess my concern is really the time, that the time has stretched for so long in terms of studying, and I understand that it's complex. I understand there's no easy solution, but I do feel that sometimes it's like diagnosing, the patient would have died. The patient's dying, and it's kind of like, well, sometimes I think, we won't find, we're not going to find the exact right
Well-
solution, so we're going to have to pick something and try it. And I know that the expense is a big part of that, the expense and the process of getting that approved. But I'm really hoping that, especially with this meeting coming up, that we're really going to try to keep this moving forward. I'm disappointed, I think, that this last report, and that might have been financial, didn't stopped at the spring, because I think it's kind of common sense in a way to know that you would want to follow it throughout the season to have enough data to go on with. But it sounds like, going forward, we're going to have more of that information. The other question I kind of have, and this may come up at that next meeting, I'm not sure it's something for this agenda, but I'm not sure about this question about what the plant issues are, whether it's algae or there was another option?
Macrophytes.
Okay. I
It-
thought
it-
we would know that by now, because.
Well, no, we might know it in the sense that, you know, you might go out there and say, oh, that's algae, I don't like that. But we don't know it with a scientific basis,
Okay.
and that's what these studies are
Okay,
about.
we-
And
so
as
we
I
haven't had-
mentioned earlier, and I know it's frustrating, I can
Sure.
imagine what it's like. Having had to deal with, I lived in Washington for a while, and I had to deal with their water group who had broken one of my sewer lines, and how long it took them to fix that. But as I mentioned earlier, when we can identify what seems to be the best way to proceed with respect to Minister Schoolhouse, we will have to go to the Conservation Commission to get a permit. And without the type of information that we are going to be able to develop next summer, scientifically based information about what the problems are in the pond, the degree of macrophyte growth, of algal growth, et cetera, and then discussions with you folks as to what it is that you consider, in terms of your use, the primary problem. Without that type of information, we will not be able to get a permit from the Conservation Commission. So I can understand the frustration of how long it's taken to get here, but we are here, and I can assure you, this will continue on track. And, because I think we all, certainly around the table, and I know Jane does, we want to see a resolution of this. We were the people who recommended in the beginning that you
Yeah,
should
no,
be
and
a
I thank you for-
priority
I
remedial.
thank you for your work. I know
Yeah,
this is.
no, I'm not saying, but
not
I mean,
an
we
easy job, yeah.
we do want to see this go forward, and it will stay on track.
I just have one further question as a follow-up to that. If you can, at any point, let us know how we can be a further part of it, that would be appreciated, because I know that, you know, do you want questions? I know you said we could bring forward questions that might come to that January meeting, which we
Yep.
won't be able to attend, and anything else in terms of the documentation you might want from us in terms of what people, the abutters, are seeing around the pond.
Sure.
I would definitely suggest, I know I have your email address, but anyone of your neighbors, if you want, you know, to get this information, because there will be times where this project will move ahead and need financial support and support from, you know, whomever, whether it's the Board of Selectmen or the CPA funding or conservation, not that you're going to
CPA is
sway.
the Community Preservation
Right.
Commission.
Not that we're swaying Conservation Commission, but just to express your interest and in your commitment to the,
And your experience, your
Yeah,
interest and your
yeah,
experience. What have
absolutely.
you experienced
yeah, because some.
living by the pond?
Exactly. So that's all very important. And, you know, likewise, I think some of the things I mentioned about, you know, rain gardens the town has instituted, you know, we're trying to build on that initiative that butters of the ponds, even though it may not solve the problem, homeowners that abut this water body might be able to, you know, live by example, and you might not even realize that your right-of-way is actually a source of nutrient loading that could be eliminated attractively at no real, you know, expense to the homeowner, I mean, to losing access, I mean, not, you know, but just building on that type of outreach and education that the town is certainly interested and committed to a solution to the problem, but, you know, it might take a village.
Right.
And I think that group support with your networking together, and just not pointing fingers, but just trying to understand that it's an educational, you know, observation that sometimes people don't even realize that they're part of the problem. And, you know, maybe we can just all get on that train of, let's be part of the solution. And so hopefully this will all work out, that we can move ahead, because it is frustrating and things take, although I have to say at this conference, I think that I only sometimes sit back and think only my projects take decades to accomplish. And it was a little more comforting to understand that every town has gone through this very long experience of permitting and, you know, from initiation to completion. Things unfortunately do take time, but
You mentioned that you wouldn't be able to attend the January 17th meeting. Do you think any of the abutters will be?
I know our neighbors here will not be able to.
Okay, are you
We
part?
don't have, I think the Friends group
Yeah.
has been rather inactive lately. I don't know if anybody has heard from them.
No, we haven't. I was going to make a suggestion. I don't know how much you were in communication with that group or with the rest of your abutters, but if no one's going to be able to attend, you might want to consider putting together a letter in advance of the meeting and sending it to the Board of Selectmen, expressing, you know, your concerns and your hopes for this moving forward and having a successful, I think it would be useful that you speak up in some form, even if you can't be there physically.
Yeah, good, I think we will, yeah.
Okay?
yeah.
Yes.
Adele, won't this be available on video form?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mike is gonna-
afterwards, yeah.
Mike is going to video the.
Yeah,
both-
it'll be
both the
available, yeah.
wastewater and the pond presentations.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you want to encourage, if you can collect a list of email addresses of people that might want notice of meetings, or, you know, this is just a little save the date that we
Okay.
put together.
Can we get that to you then? Yeah.
Yeah, get that list to me, and we'll put you on the group email. Not that we want to hound you, but I do, and if anyone out there got my email and doesn't want me to contact them, please let me know. I hate being bogged down myself sometimes, but, you know, I just tried to go back to my list and try to recollect people that had an interest. So if you have new people, anyone that gets me the email address will add you and at least inform you about the meeting, and then if you want documentation, we can certainly forward it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're next to the committee webpage.
All right, thank you.
Hope you all have a good holiday.
Okay, I'm looking at time, Adele. We've talked a lot
Oh, I went
about
to the wrong
the
place,
coastal
sorry.
conference just in our other discussions. Is there any chance I could have the rest of the time? That's the only item 6 is the only other item we
Well,
haven't
there were a
accomplished.
couple of things I guess I wanted to mention about the coastal conference.
Well,
So
why
let
don't
me
you
see
do
how-
it, and then I
how
can have the
quickly I
rest.
can go through it. Okay. One thing, okay, I know what I was going to do. I was going to display their agenda, because that makes it easier for me. I don't have to remember people's names and things like that. Okay.
Is it warm in here? Is it warm in here?
Warm in here, I'm having a hot.
Okay,
I
great.
just had to take my sweater off.
Good, okay, all right.
Okay,
Still
this is
pass
the
out.
agenda from the first day, and yes, I can't increase the size. So is this readable, or should I go back and increase the size?
I can tell you that all of the presentations are posted on the Wacoit Bay Reserve website.
Oh, they're already up?
Yep.
Okay, they said they would be there. I have the, where did I put it? Oh, it's on the first page of this. I have the website as to where to find them.
I actually sent this Solitude report from Rick York to Liz, so she could have that.
You mean the Santuit?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Rick York is the Natural Resource Director in Mashpee.
All right, I see I'm going to have to go back and blow this up.
It's-
That
There's a-
presentation, I was sitting at a table with some very knowledgeable, experienced people. That presentation really caused a lot of buzz, just sort of the feeling that this was, I think it's partly solar. Solar is
it's
a
sol-
topic of interest to many people, I think. But it's just such a clever way of doing something really good, it seems to me.
Well, that's, I mean, certainly it's worth looking very closely at, and also the price has come down amazingly from
Well,
when we looked at it
productivity
years ago.
has come up a huge amount.
Yeah.
I have 2 sets of solar panels on my house, and the new panels, a smaller number of new panels is producing almost as much solar as the original 3-year-old panels. The productivity is great.
Put us on too soon. This keeps flipping away from me here. Trying to get this up so it's readable. Is that readable? Yes, it is. Okay, here is where they had said it would be on the same place that we went to register. So if it's not exactly on that page, this is the website it will be on, www.wacoitbayreserve.org. And this says event registration. So if you go there, and if it's not exactly on that page, you'll find it. What I wanted was, let's see if I can get to it. Mention a couple of people. One was a, obviously, since it was all about what the effects were of rising seawater, et cetera, a lot of people expressed their concern that was it all gloom and doom. But in the midst of that, there was this guy in particular, and this is an interesting organization, New Jersey Future. It's just, their website is njfuture.org. And he is somebody who got involved in all of this after Sandy, and stayed with it like for 5 years. They worked on rebuilding, replenishing, and he had a lot of very positive suggestions about what to do in terms of trying to minimize the effect of flooding. And got this out of order now because I was planning to do it in a different way. So if you just bear with me for a second. Okay. And he has a report online at that NewJerseyFuture.org address. And one of the things that he mentioned, and is very relevant to us, I think, is allowing our marshlands to move, not doing anything to interfere with their natural movement in terms of preserving their ability to control erosion and also to serve the other useful purposes that they serve, which is a nursery habitat for commercial fishery species. That's why I need water. Removal of carbon dioxide, protection against flooding. The importance of salt marshes was also spoken to on the second day by, I have her down here as April. Also from New Jersey's. She's from the New Jersey, no, maybe she was the first day also. The Nature Conservancy of New Jersey that had done a study also in connection with Sandy. And they focused particularly on the importance of salt marshes and the effect of that salt marshes had on somewhat limiting. This woman, Patty Dorr, investing in coastal ecosystems, had in somewhat limiting the flooding effects of Sandy and how important the preservation of the salt marshes was. So I found that particularly interesting. On day 2, obviously this is the fellow we referred to before, Rick York, Department of Natural Resources, Town of Mashpee. He had an extensive presentation on solar bees that they were using. Let's see, I think he, as I said, he said that their problem was 78% of their total load was sediment. Santuit Pond is 170 acres, 9 feet maximum depth, 6 foot minimum. They were using 9 solar bees distributed throughout the pond. They had greatly reduced the phosphorus and also the algal growth and the cyanobacteria, which they were experienced before. From the hundreds of thousands to hundreds or a trace. And they had, the solar bees had reduced or had increased dissolved oxygen to above 5. Unfortunately, fell to 2 after that major rainfall in April of 2017. And you did say the solar bees could not immediately cope, or in the short term cope, with the effects of such a massive deluge of water. So that would take time, though he said it did not fall below 2, which was acceptable for avoiding fish kills. And he seemed confident that when Solar Bee had a chance to work on it in 2018, they would bring it back up to 5. So, and the other interesting thing, and I may have mentioned this before, is that the Solar Bees now are $50,000 each, not the humongous price that we were looking at when we first looked at them. So, and there are possible ways of like leasing them and for 2 years and then giving them back if they don't work. But all of that is only to say, I think it's something that is worth looking into. Is it the answer? I don't know, and I don't think we can know until these further studies are done. Okay. Oops, sorry, every time I hit that.
Which thing were you pointing to here?
Which one?
Was this whole thing?
Yeah, that's, no, the Solar Bee is the guy at the bottom, pond restoration and elimination of cyanobacteria blooms, Rick York, Director, Department of Natural Resources. A lot of these people had, and I had some I pulled up, but I'm not going to do it now. A lot of these people had extensive slide presentations and things like that, but as Jane said, it's all available now on the website, so you can go and look at all of that. So I just thought that, mention a few things, a few of the highlights that, spoke to me.
Is this the one that also involved solar panels for energy? Or what was this about the solar?
Yeah, the
No, solar bees.
bees are
solar.
solar powered. So
So they
they
have
look like
rays.
moorings, and they have panels on top of them. So it's like a
You have the electricity
little
that way.
landing, if you will.
So it's.
Oh, I did ask about,
Yeah, they spell that.
because I was wondering about,
SOLARBEE.
like a bee. I did wonder about their effect on recreation. And he said they have a full recreation program at the pond, and no one has complained. He also mentioned
Down in Mashpee,
that
yeah,
birds
they
seem to
probably
like
like
to light on them, and it doesn't seem to bother the birds.
But
It's
does
interesting.
do they have to wash them off, or does the rain take care of
He
that?
didn't say anything about that. It's possible the birds just like the heat, I imagine. We have solar panels on our roof, but I know they do give off heat, because I was worried the first year, after we had a tremendous snowstorm, and I thought, oh, is that going to, cut it all off? And I asked somebody, and they said, don't worry, because the solar panel is melting the snow as it comes down. So they give off some heat.
I wasn't thinking of it as a landing, like the heat. I just thought it was a perch for them to.
Yeah, but I wonder why they like that particular, I imagine it being warm. I don't know. Birds like warm. Anyway,
Hopefully they're not
so I will,
Yeah, exactly.
I'll let you go and examine the rest of the conference. It was extremely interesting, and I had planned to hear from some of the other people who were there, but obviously, we need to move on, so we finally get to
Adele,
this.
what would you say were the highlights for you? What did you?
Well, I
take-
mentioned a couple of things, obviously, this discussion of salt marshes and their importance. I think learning more about Solar Bee was important. As a personal matter, quite apart from the committee, there was a lot of stuff on the first day about sea level rise and that sort of thing that I found very interesting. I can't say that that's something I would bring up in terms of, we get into a lot of areas I don't know that we're quite into sea level rise and climate change, but those are areas that interest me, so I found all of that very interesting. And as I said, I found the presentation by this guy, David Kuttner, Understanding the Link Between Development Decisions, Planning, and Community Resilience. Very, very informative, and also what I liked about him is he was very specific. He had a lot of specific points that he thought should be covered in coastal communities planning, looking forward, how they could, plan to sort of minimize their risk. I don't think that's anything for us to go over here because, again, that's not our particular sphere, but I did find that very interesting. So,
And I was only there for the second day, but I found the presenters extremely professional. And if you looked at you could just go through it, looking at the agendas. Virtually everyone had a good one, and you could quickly tell which are the ones that you're interested in and you want to go through.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was
No,
just
no.
going, who was that, was talking about letting the marshes alone, not trying to stop them from changing.
Kuttner raised that.
That was cut.
Yeah, and it also came up in the presentation I pointed to by Patty Dorr. She also, from the Nature Conservancy of New Jersey, in her discussion of the salt marshes. And in fact, she has a whole paper, which is available on their website, about the importance of wetlands and.
And New Orleans is discovering that as well. As a barrier.
Okay, let's move on and
Well,
give
I
Mary
gained-
Lou some
I gained
time.
5 minutes out of that strategy. and so
Okay,
we've got
okay.
35 minutes left, so thank you. You've brought up my material. If we think back, well, I put the relevant lines from our committee responsibilities up at the top, just to remind us. And then what follows that is our discussion, the results of our discussion in October, which as I wrote them down and looked at it, I commend us on doing a very good job of this. So my suggestion at this point is that we go forward with the definition of our target audience as being the general public, although we know there are people who are especially interested in water issues, that committee members and town government officials should certainly find our webpage useful. And we had a fairly lengthy discussion on other influencers. And Charles and I also talked a little bit after the meeting, and I think for those of us who've done PR, it's very clear that you can identify journalists in the area who write on these kinds of subjects and try to call their attention to your material selectively, because they are the influentials in that particular area. And then any other person or group that requests information. And we appear to have a working page on the new website that allows people to sign up for issues that are of particular interest to them. So that's going to be interesting, and how that works as time goes on. So our audience is, as I say, I think we did a pretty good job, but we can always revisit this as time goes on. Our specific objectives, as we identified them, are to provide up-to-date information and fact-based information on water issues in Eastham and the towns with which we share water resources. And we talked a little bit about archiving, and I went back and checked the definition to make sure I was getting it right. And technically on the web, an archive is simply stored on a further away server, literally physically further away. So it may take you a bit more time to access items that are in the archives, but frankly, to the public who's visiting your page, it looks no different. It's just another menu and list. So it's not like we're burying them. So that's an important thing to think about as we go forward.
Just a note, actually. I guess one thing we would have to find out, and I think a lot of decisions, I take it from what I heard, you watched that same presentation at the Board of Selectmen's meeting on Monday, and I've asked a couple of questions since, and I think certain things have not been resolved yet, like whether or not they plan to have an archive. I know a question came up about the selectmen's minutes, that they had all been, not all, but the only minutes left on the selectmen's page were recent ones, and the same thing with their meeting packets, which are a source of information. And we have none. So,
We
and
don't
I
even
don't know
have
that
minutes.
yeah, we don't have any, I don't know that that represents a decision or just what's happened so far. But I think one thing that we'll have to find out, and I guess I'll leave it up to you to track that, is are in fact they going to have archives? I intend to make a pitch for, I think they're important to have, because I don't know about anybody else, but sometimes if I'm not certain that my memory is correct as to what I think we talked about at some meeting, and I have, obviously the minutes I wrote, so they're easy enough to search, but an easy way, once they're digitized, and we now have a good search mechanism on the website, you can just type in a term and see if it pulls up some minutes in which, this term was used. I've just found them useful, and I would hope that they restore them, but we'll have to see.
Those are questions that need to be answered. I sort of know how these people think, and they looked at our web page and said we had no recent agendas or minutes, so they didn't even bother to put a box on our web page for it.
Does anybody else have them? Did you look at?
Virtually everybody else does, because theirs have been kept up to date. But it's a very easy
Okay.
matter to get that back. It's just, they saw we didn't have any, so they didn't put a space for it.
Because we used to get ours posted by
Yeah,
the
exactly.
fellow who was the IT fellow who left.
So, and I should have said that in the beginning, Adele, which was that there was about a 20-minute discussion at the first meeting in January,
Yeah, a week ago Monday.
okay, of the webpage where Paul Lag,
NAG.
who apparently has been the project coordinator for the
I think so,
city,
yeah.
introduced it. It was interesting to listen to, but he was introducing it to the Board of Selectmen who just needed to know what was there. There was nothing helpful in terms of how we go about doing what our responsibility is. So as Adele says, there's a lot yet to be learned and to be figured out. The software, I know, has the capability of doing all of this, but the issue on any of these things from the software is huge. And the issue is whether the town paid for certain capabilities that I know the software has, but did they activate those capabilities for our website? And so there are still a lot of questions along that line to be answered. And I've not yet had any luck finding out who and when that's going to be, but patience is not my strong suit, so I'd really love to hear some of this. But if anybody else is interested, the software is Drupal, which is the leading not-for-profit software. And it is in fact version 7. You can find that if you go into the HTML of the website. And the advantage of using that version is that there's a huge amount of literature. You are deluged when you search it. But if any of the others of you are interested in how we as lay people are going to be able to use this, if you look for Drupal, if you look for using Drupal, all you get is developer stuff. And none of us want to be doing HTML. In order to get any of the user stuff, you have to Google something like content management Drupal or content editing Drupal. We're going to be the people in a system like this who are going to be responsible for the content. There are others who are responsible for keeping it running. But one thing that I've discovered in this whole process is that a content management system, which is what the software is as described as, not good grammar there, Drupal is described as a content management system, and that has become synonymous with do-it-yourself. It is a system that's designed to let users with the correct permissions make changes to the content of their pages, not to the way the site works, but to the content of the pages. So it's very, very powerful stuff if we learn to use it, and if we put some really good decisions behind it. So,
I'm going to have to stop you again for a second.
yes.
Because I asked about this at that Monday meeting. That was my question at the end. It's clear that all of the town departments will be content managers. They'll be deciding what to post, that sort of thing. They have not yet decided whether or not boards and committees will have that responsibility or not. That's something that's still up in the air. So,
And if you
We'll
look
see.
at it, most of them don't need it, because we're one of the very few that have the responsibility of maintaining this working library. Most of the other advisory boards and even some of the regulatory committees, I think, just post their minutes and agendas,
yeah.
which they are required to do by the open meeting laws, but they don't have any other content on their sites. I first thought that was an oversight. Then I started reading charges, and I realized, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
They're not tasked with maintaining real content on their site, but
Okay.
we are. So
Good point.
I hope you can make that,
You're thinking
make that
like a lawyer. Good
distinction.
point.
Yeah, exactly. And there were other really interesting things in our discussion in October we need to come back to eventually. Jane, for example, made the comment that I hadn't thought about, but I realized how correct it was, and she said it, that water wells will continue to be an issue of concern for a considerable period of time. Yeah, right. And Charles made the fascinating observation that water resources and water quality are not the same thing, which is a key issue in how we talk to people as we're trying to educate them about these resources. If you notice, I said water issues throughout here. I have a strong personal feeling about what people would most respond to. But I don't have any research to back it up, so I'm not going to say. But we need to know.
Oops.
Talking about the plant issue and the ponds reminded me of my experience at
Oh,
the
that's yours. I'm sorry.
Windmill Weekend, where we maintained the table. And I tried to keep an eye on what was going fastest off the table. I think what I think is a UMass Extension pamphlet on invasives may have been the number one. People saw that, looked at it, and grabbed for it. But our own brochure on ponds was also highly trafficked during that period of time I was there. Now, there are two possibilities. One is that people are really interested in invasives and in ponds, which may be true. The other is those both have really pretty pictures on the outside of the brochure, and that should not be overlooked in attracting people to the kind of information. But we need to find out more about how to talk to people and what they respond to as we go through this, and take any hints we can. Like, people do like pretty pictures. I'm very, very convinced of that. So the two things that I identified as priority issues, and the one I'd like to spend some time on in the 20 minutes we have left are we satisfied? We now can jump frog a step. We don't so much need to decide what a content structure of our page should be. We've got a content structure. Now we need to decide if we like it or not. And the second is, I think, the thorniest question of all, and I don't think we're going to touch on it today, but if you'd please be thinking about it, how are we going to work with the health department to decide what they post, which my sense is essentially comprehensive, versus what we're going to post, and we have to have some rationale for how we make those kinds of decisions. So that's interesting and important, and I think it really goes to the heart of how useful our page will be to the general public. But right now, I put this is the header at the top of each page, ours and the health department's. And then this is the basic menu structure. There may be some other boxes along the side that do something like minutes and agendas, are in fact one of those boxes. They're boxes on the side of the web page, not a menu item like this. But did I ask you if you could be? You are going to the site, okay. I have looked at each one of these items, and I develop pretty strong feelings pretty quickly, and so I'm
Wait a
delighted
minute.
to
I'm
have
sorry.
people who also do some of this.
Connected. Oh, here it
But-
comes. All right, if you want to start at the first page, here's what it looks like.
Okay, we're under boards and commissions.
Right.
And the website is well set up. There are, of course, a few things I would have done differently, but it's, you can find things. I'd be really interested if some of you would look at it if you have tablets, though. I've looked at it on my smartphone. I would have done it a little differently, but it works. I'd love to know how it works on a tablet. So, okay.
This has changed even since yesterday. It's got this Eastham Water Consumer Confidence Report. Was that there before? I didn't remember.
Yep.
Okay.
Just, for now, they have picked up, everybody has a calendar, and the calendar, part of it seems to work very well to get things out to what's going on. The news is, I think, the news box directly off the home page. We don't have our own news yet. We should have our own news, it seems to me, but we have to work on that. So could we go to each one of the blue menu
Yeah, I was just trying to
items
figure
in
out
turn?
they've changed how they do things. So I was trying to figure out where I can reduce the
Have any of
size
the
of the
rest of
type.
you looked at the page at all?
A little bit.
I have,
Just,
yeah.
you know,
and
just
also
started.
Generally. Where the heck, oh, here it is.
I would love to, by the time we get to about 18 minutes from now, see if we could get some of us to volunteer to take major categories and look carefully at them. But could we try just
Where do you want me to go?
project newsletter at the top, let people see what that is?
Oh, CWMP, okay.
Yeah. Oh,
That wasn't what you were expecting, right?
it worked fine the last time I looked at it, so I have
It's a-
no
so,
clue what's
yeah,
going on
I'm
here.
connected to the town hall.
Just try the second one and see if it's a generic
You
where we
know,
are
I know they're having
issue.
problem. Oh, shoot, so of course I
Too
lost
far.
the whole thing now.
Eric, oh,
I should be able to just go back from here
Yeah.
and get to that page, but it's not going
Oops,
there.
well.
Just go to your top sites.
Yeah, now it's saying I
That's where
can't
we
get to
were.
Eastham, Mass.
Everything's out.
What the heck is this, Guru
Okay,
Meditation?
somehow we're not on the web.
Well, when I check on the Wi-Fi connection, it says I'm connected.
Oh, can't you just put in the website name? Just do,
It is, actually.
just Google Eastham, Town of Eastham.
No, the website name is up there, but it's not bringing it up. It's in the bar. Let me see if
Can you-
Edge will get it.
Okay, well, I've looked at this enough. I think somehow we've gotten knocked off of the internet for this. I'm not sure what's going. There is one newsletter on that first CWMP project newsletter, that's a water project newsletter. Is it?
That's Comprehensive Wastewater Management Project. So this was a newsletter that we worked on in
Pretty old.
our wastewater planning.
Okay, and there is one newsletter on that. Is that the online newsletter you've ever done on wastewater planning?
We've done one more, but it wasn't finalized because it was,
Okay, but it was
we have it,
truly
we
the
have
only
it, yeah,
one
we have
available.
two, but we don't have,
Okay,
we only have
fine.
one posted.
All right,
Yeah.
so there's exactly one item posted under that first menu item, is what I'm saying. Now, the second one, the Eastham Water Consumer Confidence Report, again, there is one newsletter posted, which is very recent. I believe that's.
I think it was similar.
That's what I
yeah,
posted
that's
on the
what-
website before, yeah.
Okay. Do we need two newsletter headings, or do we need recent newsletters with menu items below that?
No,
Water quality issues,
all right, when you said before that we sort of don't have to worry about our content organization, I looked at this and my reaction was, we do have to worry about our content organization. For example, what I would see here is a, I don't know what you call these things in the blue boxes, whatever you call these.
they're menus.
Okay, my menus. What I would see is one item on a menu, the municipal water project. I would put this water consumer confidence report under that, since it's a report on the quality of the water that's being produced by the municipal water system. I mean, I don't want to say anything about the folks who put this together, but I think they saw some new things that they thought were relevant to water management, so they put them in here. But I don't, as I look at this, we are still presented with the same structural problem that we have with the current website. It's not, for someone who's done a lot of research, it is not a very handy way to research. It is not
No.
organized in a tree that will let you know, okay, if I want to read about municipal water, I go over here, and then over here I find the various things that this committee has posted that deal with municipal water. So I do think we have to look at these, at what they have set out there and figure out what are meaningful menu items on which to organize what it is we're going to
And,
post.
you know, I would argue with you on the newsletter issues, simply because I think people look at newsletters in a particular way to find recent information. And,
Why
so
wouldn't, if they're looking for recent information about municipal water, why wouldn't they look under that topic?
but then we need to be, I think there's two old maps under, or
No, but
not
I'm
old
not saying,
maps.
but you're making assumptions that what is there stays. I'm not saying any of that stuff stays. And I guess this is sort of, all they did was they took everything we had and they migrated it. I think a lot of that stuff can go.
I don't think they took everything.
Well, enough
I
of
think
it.
they took
Yeah,
the
go
things
ahead.
they thought were most useful.
I have a suggestion. It's,
Yes.
I completely agree with you. This content is, it's sort of the idea of this software platform, and you certainly know more about this than me, is consistent throughout every web page. So if you went to one department, it's going to look very familiar so that the user isn't lost all the time and everyone's platform isn't completely different. But I think this is an opportunity to just, no one is cementing you into these menu items or anything like that. I think it's an opportunity to develop your new menu items, whether you want categories and then subcategories, you want one menu item to say newsletters, whether you want, so don't feel compelled to stick with this. It's an opportunity to do exactly what you're saying, Mary Lou. What are the topics of interest? Do you want to have one that says ponds, wastewater, whatever? And if it is redundant in my health department, that's fine.
I
People
don't
might
think we
only-
have to be, actually. I'm perfectly comfortable with, we know that if we have something that says wastewater, and someone's at water management, where would I go look? They may not think health, they may think wastewater. So they come and they look under that, and what they see is the name of an item and a link to your page. I'm certain we
Yeah,
can link. Because
But
one thing, I guess, if everybody put everything up, I don't know how much, I was talking to my husband about this, because he managed a very large organization that at one point went through a rebranding effort, and part of the rebranding was development of a whole new website with a content management system. And he was talking, he said you face issues like how much space isn't the right word, but basically how much space have you bought? And so how much, or how many gigabytes or whatever do you have to spend, and that sort of thing. So I think if everybody was duplicating everything, that would probably be a waste of space. But to me, links are perfect, as long as they work. My only question about links, and I've always wondered about this, is there any way, if you have linked to a document someplace else in the website, if that document disappears, somebody decides to take it down, does the page that has the link on it, does that page get a message or something? So people don't waste their time going to this non-existent document?
Well, there's two answers to that. If it happens, you get the, I think it's the error 504, file not found, which says file has disappeared somewhere. But all websites have a tool that crawls the site and finds the broken links. It is unfortunately at that point up to someone to fix the broken links, but the finding them is very automated.
So if somebody was sort of keeping on top of that, you would know. If, for example, we had linked to something on the health department's website, and at some point they decided that wasn't useful or it was out of date, they were going to replace it with something new, so they took that old document down.
Or should
We'd
we
find that
have
out, hopefully.
fairly close personal coordination between one person on the committee and one person in the department who are doing a lot of this work and can actually say, we're going to take this down and so forth. We want to
Yeah.
do this, especially without adding a huge amount of additional work for
But I'm
Jane's
al- I'm
people.
always-
They've
I'm
got
also
plenty
looking
already,
to,
and you run out of volunteer effort at some point to do it.
I'm also looking to, when none of us are here, wondering if there are automatic systems. It's just a pet peeve of mine, that I click on a link and I go there, it's not there, but it's not a big problem.
Automatic systems identify the problems, but people have to fix them.
Okay. All right, so,
So, yeah, I get your point. I think we need to look at, there's two ways to go. We start from the total bottom, which is we identify all the topics that the Water Management Committee covers, down to, the very minimum. And then the technique I've used is you put each separate topic on a sticky note, and then you put up some columns on a whiteboard or something. Columns don't have any names, but people put sticky notes with other sticky notes that seem to match. And if there's 5 or 6 of us doing this, everybody can move them around. Nobody gets to say the sticky note has to stay there. But after a while, people get really tired and they think they've got everything in a pretty good place. And then you sit down and you name the columns, and you have your site structure. That really does seem to be starting at the beginning when we already have something. But it might be, in the end, more valuable to do something like that, because there's one of these, and I've forgotten which one it is, I think, in the wastewater. There are 3 studies which are linked, which have the documents there, and there are 2 where they couldn't find the documents. So they just have something listed, but there's no link to an actual document. And what's here
Oh,
reflects.
you mean on this new site as opposed to our old site?
Yes,
Okay.
Because
exactly.
I think whatever you had was basically migrated over,
Yeah.
just so there was no judgment
Yeah.
by the new,
Yeah, that's what I thought they
new
were doing.
program. It
But
was
maybe
just,
stuff could have gotten lost in the
Yeah, it would have
migration.
cost the town a fortune more to have done what you'd love to see done, which is you talk to each page owner and you see what needs to be done,
no,
and you
we
do all
have to
this.
do it ourselves.
We're in the DIY stage, which
Right.
is fine. But you're right, they didn't make any judgments as they did. I don't think they migrated everything. I think they just even migrated the most current things. But,
Well, that, I mean, we can,
yeah,
we
we
can
can.
find out by going back and
So-
looking at I actually, well, you have too. Well, we all have, we want to use it. Because of what you worked up, yeah, that went to the committee as a whole. The thing that you worked up that listed all of the menu items on the old website and what was in them, we do have a complete list of everything that was there. So I guess we can go back and look at that.
Yeah,
if
and
we want
remember
to
that
see.
each one of these basic menu items will have a pull-down menu, or can
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
pull-down menu, or we can list as many things as we need. And each one of those can have a pull-down menu. I think, to me, 3 is the most you want to have. Main page, 1 pull-down and another pull-down, but that's arguable. But as long as I have anything to say about this, there will be none of them that are headed no subject. They'll all be clearly identified as to what they are. And I think we also need to make some decisions about dates. What are the things we want to keep front and center? And what are the things that do go in the 3rd or the 4th pull-down heading, which is called archive,
Yeah.
which is the older stuff.
No, I think dates can be a very useful surrogate for that. I think, though, we have certain seminal things that maybe we need to keep available, like the 2009 report on wastewater, because that was the jumping-off document for everything. That was the one that said, here's your general issues, here are possibilities, but by the way, we think your most pressing concern is public health related to drinking water, and so you should move forward on drinking water. And while you might think that by now everybody in town knows that's why we did it that way, nonetheless, people will raise the question, why did you do drinking water before wastewater? So it's useful to be able to say, we had this major study in 2009. And, and that'll probably wash out maybe in the next 10 years, but I suspect as long as there are people around who remember the sequence, it's going to stay around as a question.
It would be
Yeah.
incredibly useful if whatever we decide these blue menu items are to be, if the first thing that opened was a context page, which did just what you said. That's one of the things that's frustrated me so much as a newcomer, is I don't know when, without digging, a lot of these things are done. Dates are invariably there, but they're sometimes hard to find. I don't know why they were done, I
Okay.
don't know what they followed.
What do you mean by a context page?
Well, it's what the charge does for the committee.
You mean a list of events and when they happen? I'm just trying to get a sense of what you mean.
No, a 2 or 3 paragraph layman's description of what this menu item is all about.
Oh, you mean in each one of these things?
Each one of
I
these,
see, okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, I think generally it's one thing hopefully we would come out of this with is
It
a
would
much
just- it
more
would help people
user-friendly.
So much.
A much more
And
user-friendly
of course, someone
site.
has to write them, which is always the next problem with this stuff. You only get content when someone produces it.
Well, it may take time, but I think we can get it written. So, but first,
So-
we'd have to, for each menu item, you're saying, okay.
Would we like to make sure we've got a live connection next time around and look at these all together?
Well, we have had a live connection, because I've been on the internet since we've been here.
Yeah,
I
but I
went to
don't
the internet.
understand.
I don't know
I
what's
don't think
happened
these have
now.
gone away since I looked at
No,
them a couple of
I think
days
East
ago.
Ham server dropped.
Yeah, I think.
Because she was getting everything up till she tried to go into East Ham.
Okay,
Let me see what I
Could
don't
be.
want you, what do you, and I'm back again now, okay. So let me just try some.
Just hit one of those
I'll hit the-
Google
whoop,
things.
whoop. Here we go. Maybe it's
This is
alive
Google's
again.
new thing, and I think it's so cool.
Yeah, here it is now. So it's in and out. So where do we want to go again? To the Water
Board and
Management Committee?
commissions. Water management.
Starting with a W, we're almost last on the list.
And here we are.
First one, CWMP. Newsletter.
No?
Over to the left.
No, I know
Got that.
where it is, Jane, just a second. I am not the swiftest typist in the world, never having learned how to type. I escaped that in my high school
Okay, it's
years.
back, you're right, Jeff.
Okay.
And whomever is producing newsletters, I think all of them should have the month and the year.
Oh.
Because I've had a question like, when was this written? Something that starts with, in 2008, we did something, makes me think, the newsletter might be from 2008. We need a very clear description of when. And I think one of them says 2017, but so I'm going, is this the only newsletter from 2017? We're running out of time. What is your pleasure? Would you all like to carefully go through each menu item and see what you think about what's there now? We need a process, and we're already missing January, hopefully, and not getting any further on putting our webpage in the shape we'd like to have it in, because you're right, this merely reflects the condition our webpage was in.
Right.
When they built the new site.
My druthers, and I don't know if people are willing to do it, is if everybody would go through, look at each one of those menu items, look at the subheadings under them. I don't mean study them at length, but at least know what's there.
No one's,
I will endeavor, I probably may not get this out until after Christmas. I'll take that old thing that you had put together and get rid of all those extra columns. So it simply is a map of what was on the website before this change and what was in each of the menu items on the website before this change. So we'll see what's there. And those of us who are interested can do a comparison to see what's there as opposed to what's here. I say even Christmas, but then the week after Christmas, I have stuff going on too. So, this is probably going to be sometime in January before I'm going to be able to have much of a product. I may be doing stuff before then, but anything that would be a product that would be useful for anybody to look at. And
well, why
yeah,
don't
go
we
ahead.
attack it on two fronts? Because I think part of what was a little scary to me was that if that document doesn't list everything that was on there, I think we've lost not lost a bunch of stuff permanently. I'm sure there are people here who could find the files in their files, but we've lost the structure that we did have initially, and that could be useful. But I think it would be really useful if you would make that a more workable document. I think then we could approach it from another point of view, because I think everybody ought to spend some time looking at first the home page and see what's there, and see what of those items, our
Okay,
calendars
you
there.
mean the home page for each menu item?
The home page of ESTEP, the one you hit initially.
Oh, at the very beginning, okay.
Just see what, that pretty much shows you what the current options are, although the real options are limitless. But as I say, they picked that news box up from the front page. Look and see what's there, and see what we could usefully use on our page. But more important, look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 menu items that are there now, and come back with the 2, 5, or 13 menu items that you'd like to see. Each of us do that individually.
How did
I
these
will
get there
pull
now,
that all
Mary
to-
Lou? How did these get there now? I mean, those 6 items, or 5 items, how did they get up there?
It was a migration from our page. Somebody
I-
migrated them.
Yeah,
One of the
but I don't
technicians.
think this was even our old, I know it wasn't even our old structure. We didn't have all of this stuff here. I think it was the web developer's assessment of what our site should look like,
Well,
based on what we had there at
yeah,
that
yeah,
point.
yeah. I guess their idea of how to compress things, because we must have had like, I'm just guessing.
So
But
if-
we must
if
have
you
had
all
6
would
to
do
8
that-
menu items,
Yeah.
even without the, yeah.
As I said, if you go to another board or department, the structure is all the same. So that's the idea, that if you go to each new magazine or layer or whatever, they're all the same, so the user will get comfortable with all the menu items are on this side, the news is on that side, the content's here. So that's, the format is consistent, it's more professional. My particular department, I haven't even looked at it since the migration, and just from what you showed me, I'll make major changes, but
Oh, wait
I
a minute, I
just
went to
haven't
the
had
Board of
chance
Health,
to
I should
look
have
at
went
it.
to the Health
Yeah,
Department.
if I could editorialize on what Jane just said, as I remember counting it, there are 7 different page templates for the site. And that the main page of the boards, advisory boards and so forth has 3 columns. So there are basic templates, we have to live with those, but within those, the content would seem to be essentially our own.
Yeah, the page layout is just a template, we have to live, but they don't prescribe the number of menu items you can have or that sort of thing, because I flick around and look at, some people have more menu items, some people have less menu items, so it's.
And I
but
don't
how
like
they
the way
got
this
them
is migrated for me, so I'm changing mine, but I didn't even, I haven't had any chance to look at it. But,
Yeah,
Well, it's
I have,
tough,
I mean,
yeah.
I know what I want
Right.
out there
Yeah.
for categories, if you will, menu items, and I know what I want. So it's easier for me to,
Yeah, we hadn't
yeah,
gotten there yet.
exactly. That's what you're working on, exactly what you're working on.
And I think we can get there, if we put our heads to
Well,
it pretty
I kept
quickly.
seeing
Maybe, in
that-
fact, that,
2 different Board of.
absent some sort of major issue
One with
coming
a
up,
long
maybe
list and one
that's
with a short list.
what we spend our time on.
But the question-
And there's also, not now,
Yeah,
but at some point, we
I
have to
guess
think
this is
about
heresy, but-
what hasn't made it there that should,
And these
like
people-
Sandy Bain and I
Or is that-
put
I mean,
together
this
a
is-
list of
This is so close to
various
this.
events.
Oh, you mean
Water-
the items?
Yeah, I'm just.
Just
So
think
put
this
that on
happened
your-
this year,
put
this
that
happened
on
that
your
year.
menu list.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'll
Well, you gotta
volunteer to
link
do, to
things.
take
You gotta
what,
link
5
two
of us,
things.
assuming Jane doesn't want to
I
play.
think just a link that says see the Board of Health.
What
is,
5 of
yeah.
us do,
Yeah.
and
Not
see
what-
what
Six
common
of us.
threads I
Suzanne-
can find
Suzanne will
and
be
put them
part of it.
together and see what the
Maybe, yeah,
outliers
maybe
are,
get to somebody
and we
and
could
say,
talk
well,
about
this-
it. Maybe we
I-
can avoid
somebody's
a
more than
total
one.
bottoms-up
Well, they're both so
approach
close,
if
you'd think it
we
would be
start
simple.
with
We could all
this.
just be combined.
Although I'm very fond of total bottoms-up approaches.
I mean,
That
I
sticky
think,
tag works
I think
great.
that is an excellent way, it's an excellent way to,
It works.
To
It's
figure
a
it out.
quality
I-
method.
I'm just logistically thinking about where do we find the whiteboard and the
Oh,
time?
we have,
No, I mean, we have one, but I don't think this is a 2-hour project. So we basically
That's
would
part of
have
the
to line
problem. Yeah,
people up to
it's
say,
not.
are you willing to come in and spend a
Might
day
have to
doing
have a half
this?
workday just to do that.
Yeah, I was thinking a workshop someplace along this, but I would certainly volunteer to do the sticky notes in a draft column, and then share it with anyone else.
That's.
No, that doesn't work, okay.
That's not the process, I mean, this is a prescribed process within the quality management stuff. And it requires that a variety of people be doing it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
It
so
wants a whole
let's,
bunch of judgments to
let's
make
think
it work
about
well.
it and
So
think,
I'm trying to sort of transfer that to each of us
Okay, and
doing
I'm-
it individually.
I will
And
admit-
I'll pull it together.
I'm trying to get out of here because I have another commitment. Let's think about this sticky note idea, which makes a lot of sense, but recognize that our normal meetings are for 2 hours. As I listen to this and as I think of things I've seen done in other settings, this is not a 2-hour project. So what we would have to think about is whether or not we, as a group, are willing to have a meeting, whatever we call it, workshop or whatever, but have a meeting for an extended period of time that would run this process through. And I'm not asking for a decision now, but think about it. And it may be a more worthwhile decision to make after we've sort of gone through this initial thing of menu items. And, because I guess we have to start with menu
We've gotta
items
start with
anyway.
something.
So try to figure out what menu items you think make sense, including whether we'll, and that may be more because I sort of know what's out there and has never been posted. What you would see as a menu item for something, I don't know if they ever put like history of something or other. I can send you the names of some of these documents and you might be able to see, is there a menu, can you devise a menu item that would cover them?
Are
Yeah.
these news items here real news items, or they placeholders? I mean, what, we do affordable housing rental assistance?
No, we
program?
don't do it, I think this is just news, it's not necessarily our
It
news.
doesn't have anything to do with us necessarily, okay. Okay, that was my question. And so, but the news items are gonna appear on each page? I mean, the same thing's on the health
I can
page
only,
and stuff?
I can only
Where'd
check
they come
another
from?
page, let me see.
Yeah, from the homepage.
Oh, they just pop up from the homepage. And I guess if a particular board or committee had a separate news item, would it go on their page? These are questions we need to get answered, I guess, is what it comes down to.
Well, technically, we can. What the policies are that are going to govern the instruction, I think, is still a very open question.
Yes, Jeff.
Sometimes what I've seen is people are striving for perfection in designing a system, and then they can walk away from it. And the problem is that they never use it, they never work with it, and it doesn't work very well. If you start out with something that, you know it's not perfect, but it's amorphous, and it gets revisited on a regular
Yeah.
basis, it arrives at where you want it to be. Am I making any sense with that?
Yeah,
See
and
this
I
all the time in industry.
Yeah.
I don't think we're striving for perfection at this point.
No,
We're
but
just
you
trying to
think
make,
you-
have something that if
what
you
you
go
think you
to it,
can
you don't
do-
go, what is this?
What you try to do is you get it right the first time, and then you can forget about it.
Oh, no,
And
no.
it's not that simple.
No, the only thing that I see is trying to get right for now is trying to envision conceptually what are relevant and useful menu items. And then you could add to those items when new things
Sure.
come up.
Exactly.
You could obviously add to what you put under those menu items as new things come up.
But you have to revisit it.
Oh,
That's the thing
yeah,
that people
yeah.
don't
A
get.
website is a living,
Exactly, and how many of them aren't? They're so cumbersome, they're so unusable. I mean, Amazon's, obviously, people are looking at that all the time. That one works, but there's
Hundreds
a
of
lot of them that don't.
It works until about 4 days before Christmas.
Yes.
Well, I think there's a slowness there, that's right, but
Haven't gotten caught in that. Okay,
okay, I
so,
mean, that is sort of one of these messy starts, but it is a start.
okay. So let me see if I
important
get,
just
if I
get
have it
started.
right as to what we're going to do. We're all going to take a look at what's here,
And you
But-
go on the line.
And go
Yes.
online, take a look at what's there, look what's under them. I will endeavor to produce a document that tells us what we had on the website before. So if it's necessary, we have it for comparison purposes. That document will not appear until sometime in January. And then, having done that, each of us think individually about what menu items make sense to us. If I was going to this website to look for something, what menu items would give me a clue as to where to go to find what I was looking for?
But not you,
Oh, I don't mean me. I
Knowledgeable.
mean, if I was,
a member of the general public
right,
going to
right.
this site.
Well, and I could,
Yeah.
yeah,
But-
okay.
But that's exactly the kind of thinking
Okay,
that we need
yeah,
to do.
okay.
It's gonna sound like heresy, but you know, when I look at Health Department and Water Commission, they sound so much alike. And are we struggling to differentiate the two when in fact they really are enmeshed? I mean, there are two committees, and probably they should be, but I'm just wondering if we're struggling to make
Well, the
two.
one is a town department, and the other is an advisory committee.
No, no, I mean.
Committees, they're
I'm
not two
thinking-
committees.
No, Scott, I'm thinking of the content. I'm thinking of the subjects covered are very similar, and they,
That's true, and that's why I said when we get to dealing with particular documents, we can think in terms of links. I can tell you by talking to people, sometimes it amazes me, in fact, when I talk to friends and neighbors and stuff, and people who I consider very well educated and stuff. In fact, someone the other day, I had no sort of understanding of 208. I thought, oh. But anyway, that people tend to think, if it's water, if it's drinking water, they tend to think, if they know about the committee structure, they tend to think of the Water Management Committee. So they would come here. And if there's something that's on the Health Department's page, and we think that's perfectly fine, so we just have the name of the document so they know it exists, and then they go to that page. I'm not struggling to duplicate in any way. I hate duplication. But, that sort of thing to get, I don't think there are too many ways you can communicate information to people. And that's both from my professional experience and from my continuing conversations with people who I think are generally knowledgeable about what goes on in town and in other towns. And it's just a constant, how can you get the information out there? In that respect, I guess I should mention, I don't know if we already did, we're running out of time, the town's Facebook page. If you are not aware of it, and if you are a Facebook user,
I'm not.
you should go on
Go to
Facebook.
look at it anyway.
Okay, you should
I
go,
have to get an account on Facebook to do it?
well, I could bring it up, but I'm not
think
going
you
to do it
I
right
mean,
now.
I've tried to look at Facebook pages just by clicking on it, and they say, sign up. And I said,
No,
"Nope,
you
I'm
yeah,
not
you
doing
can't
that."
use Facebook unless you sign up. It's not a big deal to sign up. It
I know,
doesn't,
but I don't want them getting hold of my name. Thank you.
well,
You
then,
know what, I'm telling you that.
Well,
you
use-
have to sign up. You're right.
anyway, the town, could I finish, please?
Yes.
All right? The town has a Facebook page.
Yeah.
It has a very simple name, Town of Eastham. And it is where the person who is currently managing the page, and hopefully when they have another person managing the page, will endeavor to provide as much information as possible to Facebook users about events and happenings in town. And it is a very useful resource, I think, because I guess if we think about it, there's a large community of people in Eastham who will go to Facebook for information. They may not come to the website. That may not be the first place they think of going. So again, this is an effort to find yet another means to communicate, to provide information, to tell people what's going on in town. And if we want to involve that segment of the community who's more into that type of social media, I think it's very useful. So,
And this is very well done. I'm sorry you don't like Facebook, but if any of the rest of you want to look at it, it's very hard to find Facebook pages just from the web. Go to the Eastham homepage, and it's got a follow us on Facebook right there at the
Okay.
top. Use their link to get to it.
Oh, so I can get to it.
Now,
if
actually,
you
I
wanna
did have
spend
a
1 minute.
Facebook account. I tried to close it, and then eventually I had to close my email because I
Oh,
couldn't stop
follow us
them
on
from-
Facebook, right here.
I know.
Okay.
They're
For all of you
quite
who may be
determined.
watching, there you go.
I have the reports in there.
Okay, if we, could we, before we go into side conversations, could we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So
Oh,
moved.
I'm just going to hand out
Second it.
these are the flyers for the meeting. My attempt at good pictures.
Jane, I don't know if you ever do it, and if you think
So the
it's,
meeting is
it's a
closed,
permissible
right?
thing to do. Do you think these could be posted at like, what used to be Brown's?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay,
We
'cause
usually
I know
do.
we've posted things there
Yeah,
before.
we usually go around and use
Okay.
every source and whatnot, so.
I'm going to sign up for the water interest group on the new webpage. I had never signed up because I didn't think it was working.
Adele.
So
Did we get a
I'm gonna
vote
be your
on
test
the-
We did.
subject.
The meeting's
I'm
closed.
gonna sign up.
Adjourn. Adele, where does one find the
It's on
two-oh-eight
my
plan?
health
Where is that
No,
shown in our?
this is a new,
Oh, I did
better
by typing
page on the
208 in
site
Google.
to sign up for a
Yeah,
whole
you can
bunch of
pretty much.
beneficiaries for
I've
emails.
sent it before out in emails. Let
Yeah, I
me,
gotta take, I haven't had a minute to
It's
look
not
at
in-
the
Well,
numbers.
I'm sure you haven't, and there's
I
so
don't know. I
much.
mean,
oh,
it's
we
not
would
ours.
not, no.
We didn't.
We might put a link, and that's the sort of
But
thing
that
I'm
should be a
talking
link.
about with links. There should be a link to the 208 plan. There should be a link to this implementation stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Because,
There are two,
am I still live?
yeah,
We were adjourned, he normally,
you didn't hear me,
oh, okay.
but there are two.
Well, I guess, is the meeting adjourned as soon as someone